Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is the fourth in the series of I guess, a little lecture, but my presentation's about a book, literature called The Living Novel. We started introducing it to you and what's in it and how it works. We are going to be coming back in future segments that's actually going to have taking you inside of the living novel and show you how it works and having people participate in it. And that's a fun thing. But a lot of what it is the novel that we are all living at the moment. The world is crazy. I'm looking at all the news. Suddenly, at political conventions and religious organizations with Joel Osteen, someone's shooting up at Joel Osteen's place. You can't have a large event anymore without somebody, a mass shooting going on. We've had so many mass shootings now. It's like 1 month. What time of the day is it? Oh, there's one due at 4:00. Mass shootings are just becoming this phenomena that we're numb to. We hear it and we just play it off. But it's a big shift from where we were in the 50s and 60s, and the mass shooting was even in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. A mass shooting, but now it's commonplace. So you look at our society moving from one place into a society that has mass shootings and everybody has guns. And I think about parents having my child go out now into a world where if they're in a crowd, they might get shot. I mean, we need that. We need to have that worry in our society. I don't think so. I guess at every stage of our evolutionary development, parents would worry about their children going out. Caveman days, you're worried about sending your kid out. Don't go near that. Don't go near that Komodo dragon. You know that Komodo dragon is not your friend. Just stay away from the Komodo dragon. Yeah, and then your kid is out, and you're worried about him being eaten by a bear or something. Or some prehistoric animal, and then later you were worrying at different things. So I guess there's worry all along the way. So, and we are worrying for our kids, and when they're going out, is it going to be safe? But it sure seems like it's a lot less safe now than it was safer before. After World War II, seemed safe. The 50s, great, carefree, no worries, everybody's building. Now we're back to the same old kind of stuff, world domination, countries taking over countries. Some of you know I went on that mission to the Ukraine, and I helped deliver ambulances, much needed ambulances, to the front lines of the Ukraine. It was an incredible experience for me. I'm about to do it again, and because it really, you see people needing help who are being brutalized by a big bully, and you kind of try to come to their aid. So, and it felt good, by the way, when I did take that ambulance over to the Ukraine and drove it into the front line where you're seeing body bags. It wasn't as bad as Gaza, but you're seeing body bags and buildings blowing up, and you're hearing sirens, knowing there's an incoming missile. I did go into that kind of war zone, and it was very enlightening. It was, well, certainly perspective giving. So I went into that war zone and I did that. I'm about to do it again. But you have things like that happening all over the world. The world's changing. We know it is. We know we've got technology changing, and the access to data, which would give anybody who's interested in having some power, feeling like they've got some real power now because they've got this extra data that they know something somebody else doesn't. And it's just human nature just continues and continues. But the lack of safety in our society now, that really is an issue that bothers me, and I'd love to get us back to some place that's who's responsible. Who's responsible for us now getting into a world that isn't safe and into an America that isn't as educated as it used to be? But there's a lot of different topics that I'm going to be talking about, that I'm going to be introducing you to, and in some of these books of notes for the living novel. But right now, I have a very, very special thing to present. There's this really talented, brilliant mind that's been out here at LTV for years. 2000, he was here way before I was, and I was out here in 1989, 1999, but 2000, 2004, helped produce some shows here, helped us produce some fundraisers out of here, did some set decorating out of LTV, put on a great production, a 24-hour marathon. That was kind of fun, but that was a while ago. But Haim Mizrahi is here in the studio, and this guy just fascinates me. His consistency. It can't be topped. His train of thought, hard to follow, but when you do, you get it. It's like I want to liken understanding Haim when you listen to his podcast as kind of what it's like when you read the Tao. So anyone who's ever read the ancient philosophy of the Tao, you've got these three passages, and you read it and you read it, and the leaf falls and it flows along the river. And if you flow, look how well you travel through life. If you fight the river, you go nowhere. The fish that swim against the tide go nowhere. It has little lessons like that, but they all have deeper lessons. Every one of those pages, every lesson, the things that the superior man nerves himself to ceaseless activity, the things that you learn that have been recognized as human nature in the Tao, you follow it. But each passage is kind of like a lesson. And I had this one book, the Jane English translation of the Tao, white cover, nice book, and I'd go through it and I'd read them, and I'd feel like I was gaining some kind of wisdom. But it was much later in life that I had left that book behind, came back from LA, where I was running my film studios, came back to LA and found that book again that I had really been reading after high school and a little bit in college. I said, oh, look at this. And I started reading it again. And suddenly it popped out of the pages where I suddenly realized how to really understand the messages in the Tao. It wasn't until I came back later in life, and I boiled it down to kind of a simple sentence. To fully understand the wisdom, the knowledge that comes out of the Tao, you just have to know the word therefore and know where to place it. Because when you read the Tao, it's like I said, sometimes three passages, one or two, but it'll start making a statement, and then it'll go to another statement that seems completely unassociated with it. Sometimes the way Haim talks, it's like, well, that seemed like it was completely unassociated with it. But when you know where to put the word therefore, you go, wait a second, they're talking about this, and then they're talking about that, and then you go to this. Why would they do that? Why would they put these together? This is like a conclusion of that and a different way of looking at it. Oh, therefore this. And suddenly when you start to look at the Tao and study it with that kind of an understanding of always use the word therefore and find the right place to put it, suddenly you get the Tao. And I'm about to introduce you to a guy that his speaking is like that. Haim is in the studio. We love this guy. You have to listen to his show. He's been doing it for a long time. Come on out.
Thank you. Oh my God! I for a second I saw you reinventing yourself.
Well,
so quickly.
God willing. But it's great having you here.
Thank you. First of all, I don't take it for granted. I want to thank you for your kindness and regard and consideration. And of course, we go long ways when it comes to the concept of public access. But also, maybe I will have the chance to share with you how easy it actually to do what I do. But you gotta find willingness in place by community, by individuals, and then you flourish yourself too.
I'm going to liken you to. We all know that Dean Martin had the nickname. Elvis Presley gave Dean Martin a nickname. Dean Martin called Elvis Presley the king of rock and roll, and Elvis said, "No, but you're the king of cool." And this man is the king of cool. You sit back, you're relaxed. What I envy is you can just hear that these are just things that are in your mind, and you're they flow out kind of automatically, artistically, and there's a thread of your discourse that suddenly when you get going, you just go, and next thing is okay. It's like surfing. It's like, let's go surfing with Haim. And okay, here he goes. Okay, he's over here now. He's over there now.
Without a board, you don't need it. That's the thing. With the board, it's anyone
without
can
the
do
board.
it. But the thing is, when you use point of references as real as my point of reference, because it's a hands-on, I always speak of art, I come from art, from the artistic venue, journey and all this, and it's my own journey. It's not like I have to reflect, because I read it somewhere, I live it every day. So it's very easy to get into a point where, you cannot go wrong. Like, the Manifesto of Surrealism by André Breton in 1925. Just imagine, he wrote it
Yeah.
almost 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And what's so brilliant about it? Resist the temptation to check what it is that you achieved so far. Resist the temptation, and then you can't get it. What do you mean resist? I want to edit, I want to see, I want to admire myself. No, and then the more you realize that this was the quotes of all quotes, the suggestion of all suggestions, then you said, oh, I wish I would have known it.
So give it to me again.
Yeah. So that resist the temptation to check what it is that you have created so far. So maybe complete the cycle, and when you get to a cycle where you can say, okay, I'm done, then you can indulge. But not before, because otherwise this is not surrealism. This is either realism, expressionism, but it's not surrealism. Surrealism is that you avoid all that which tricks you in the process of that creative process, and then decide that, okay, now I'm done, and then because it's a luxury now, you go back to the beginning, you do whatever you want, but not while it's forming. Otherwise, you shoot yourself in the foot.
So you're applying that to your art and to your philosophies and how you live your life. I actually, that actually is in sync with something that I do. Diaries. I've been writing journals since junior high school. And once in a while, I'll look back at it. But it's like that process. And also in a book that I'm writing this and I'm just letting it flow. From time to time, I've gone back to check the process, see what was I doing? And it's like, oh no, I don't even want to see that.
Yeah.
And I know when I'm finished, like with I've got this book, this novel, The Living Novel, and I've got 13 chapters, and I'm writing them all straightforward. So this really is, it's exactly what you're saying. I don't want to go back to the previous stuff
But
I read.
only when you engage in surrealism, not always that sometimes you have to go and check it, but when you engage in surrealism, because he introduced it to the world, he says surrealism is that which you pleasantly vomit, and then kind of let it form and let the paint run its course and whatever it is, and so much more that you're going to find out later. And this is surrealism. Surrealism is really trust the process. Even though you can do it for 30 years and you still don't know what it is really all about, but you enjoy, you trust the feeling that it gives you, and you enjoy it, and you feel like it can really, many people would love to have it as a part of their lives, you know what I mean? So when you do that, it's easy. Why? Because you can also snap back to reality and introduce other segments of that process, that has nothing to do with surrealism. If you come from the outside of the world of surrealism, it's very hard to find yourself into it while you're doing the outside. But when you come from surrealism, to venture out is seamless. You don't have to have experience, nothing. So you can go to last night dinner with the family, you can go to the encounter with a friend, or in a disappointment over this and that, or a recording that you did, or the poem that you wrote, or this. You have the license to do that, and you come back, and now you realize, okay, that's much easier, because if you want to introduce 100% surrealism, usually you fail.
So but your surrealism is a continuum.
You continue,
It continues. It doesn't stop. It doesn't have a finite, wrap it up, right at the end of the sentence, oh, everybody goes home, has a happy time. No happy endings. It's like, but it's just an endless process.
Yeah.
Well, I do that a
As
little
it
bit,
should be, rightfully so, Like, look at you, I look at you. You have all it takes. And the difference between us, to so many other people, is that people feel like us, but they don't understand how to take this aspect of being willing to do that and being convinced that this is exactly what they want and how it should be. And also it's a requirement. You cannot just kind of wishful thinking that the car is going to go on its own behalf. You got to start somewhere. You got to do a few things, but you have to do it. It's crucial. We are willing to engage in the process. And we don't stop to say we believe in the process, therefore we believe in the process. It's a given. It's a no-brainer. We don't want to deal with no-brainers. It's already shown by our action. So our willingness to cope with those desires that so many others have, but they don't understand that it takes that willingness that will lead you to an engagement, and then you're in. then it's like the mercy of God and your ability as a human being
and then
combined.
then it all becomes self-evident. All of a
Self-evident.
sudden, you're like, oh no, there you go, it's self-evident.
Yeah,
That's right. But that process, Schopenhauer said that thing. He said, all great truths go through three processes. First, they're ridiculed. You put something out no one ever heard before. They're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Then if you continue to present an idea, the world is round, not flat. People are going to really resist it, and they don't want to have to get out of their own thoughts. So they're going to get violently opposed. So first you're ridiculed, and you're violently opposed, and then everybody gets it and takes it as self-evident, and they just like feel it. They're just, now they're part of it, and sometimes think that they thought it up themselves, which is kind of irritating. But so that process of understanding and going till you get it. So you get it. You sit there and do your podcast, and I listen to you flowing, and you get it. And then in your interview, I'm sorry I forgot the woman's name. I just saw her last night. The one that interviewed you, and she was great.
Oh yeah, Ellen Colcord. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's going to be one of the artists that's going to show
Yeah.
here in the month of March.
She did a great job interviewing you.
Yeah.
She brought out good stuff in you, but you were a
Oh, you're talking
classic-
Sandra Kay. Got it.
Yes, Sandra
sorry,
Kay.
Yeah, I thought you.
Sandra Kay did a great interview.
Yeah, she did. Yes.
It was and she
Too
brought great.
short though.
Yeah,
Too short.
yeah, I was
Half
in. I
hour
was
was
I was
like-
watching the whole thing, and
Yeah.
and she hit all these good points about talking to you.
Yeah, I think so. I think that she radiated what it takes to have not only a pleasant one, but a constructive one.
Yeah.
But for example, you were mentioning something that triggered a memory when I first started with art in 1997, first show and all this. I felt vulnerable, like I'm amongst artists, educated, and have this heritage of education and whatnot, and I was like naked and fragile, and how dare I be there even, But then I realized that I can introduce something that has nothing to do supposedly with this reality, but I'm very strong at it. I have work ethics, I know how to work, I know how to make money even if I don't charge a lot, kind of thing. So I brought it into that world. So what happened, I made people busy trying to figure out how I'm doing things, but not necessarily deal with the result of what I do. I don't leave them time to do that. So they begin to admire my technical ability to put this show together, but not necessarily being able to say, that's a wonderful painting and you're a great artist. They're too busy trying to figure out how is he doing that. That in itself is a task and a half. But you don't give up. When you become actually famous or better and all, you don't give up this attitude. This attitude should be with you for life.
So the attitude is how you and the process by which you are presenting something, not so much on the end result.
Because there will be time for that, for the actual. Okay, let's
But after
now
we're
let's
gone?
look at. No.
After we're dead, and they'll
no.
look back at us and say, "Oh, look at what he did."
No. I resent this when people tell me die and all that. I thought you don't need to die in order to be famous and to profit. There's enough artists that can sell $1 million painting any day of the week. There's enough. But that's not the point. The point, you want to make people happy. When they tell you that they're going to buy a painting from you, you don't need to hear from them that they're going to hang it in the living room and they're going to have to live with it for the rest of their lives. But probably that's what they're going to do. So wouldn't you be thankful even without the specific knowledge of what they're going to do with the art? You assume right by saying they didn't pay you $5,000 to put it in the closet, obviously. You know what I mean? So, but that kind of, so what happens is by the time they have the time to now finally address the art, in the back of their mind, there's a cover story that they cannot mess with this person. He already had something to show for. And we're not even talking about art even yet. Yeah. So you approach his or her art already with an established appreciation that you gathered, because he kept you busy trying to figure out, wait a second, but you had this show only 2 months ago, and how come you're having this show 3 months later and it's new work? No. What's going on? What's going on can last forever, and you benefit from it. Why? Because in that time, you're working on your vulnerability. You're addressing your weaknesses. And then when they're ready to address your art, suddenly you're ready to be part of the engagement. You're solid, you're more comfortable with yourself, you have more of an idea where you're coming from, where you're going to, and all of this. But sitting in the podcast room, I learned a lot from Fraser Dougherty that I took the show from.
Fraser, yeah.
He used to have a show where the camera was here for 35 minutes. All you saw is his nose and his eyes, and you thought he was a crazy man, but it wasn't.
Yeah. I was out in LA for his memorial, and sorry I missed him. You were there, a bunch of other people. It was a nice
Yes,
thing.
yes. To live to be 101, that's a blessed, and that's why we have what we have here.
Yeah.
You know, really thanks to that effort. But listen, I wanna bless you for and strengthen
Thanks.
your hands and helping you fortify your demeanor to continue with
Thanks.
what you're doing.
But
Because
wait, but I want to backpedal for a minute. Something that you were just saying, so that when you finished a piece of art and someone has bought it, bunch of money, figure, well, they didn't put it in their closet, they're putting it someplace. The things that make people buy your art, is it how they get, because they're seeing this end result, they're getting to see this process, they get to see you, so I'm buying the artist. A lot of times I'm buying a piece of art because I'm buying that artist, that artist is somebody, and I love what he's doing with his head, so I would buy your stuff because it's good to you. And then and say, oh, look what Haim did. So that's actually, I guess, maybe a good sign of who a real artist is.
That's a
You're
good
looking at
point.
the person and saying, oh, he's so fascinating, he's an artist, what is he putting together? But then the reactions people might have when you finish one of your pieces, have you created it in a way that you expect it to achieve a certain emotional result? Or an intellectual, the purpose of all art is to make people think. So when you're doing your art, if you think, oh, look, this is something, and you maybe, you're gonna have to explain this because I don't know your artistic mind enough, but when you're finished with a piece, do you have an expectation that, oh, they're gonna feel this way about it, they're gonna like it? Or have you ever had the experience where someone came and they got a completely different concept out of what you created than what you thought you were making?
Yeah. Well, first, I want to thank you for asking this question because for some reason I really have a good answer for it. It's
Well, we got a
actually-
little thing going on,
Yeah.
a cosmic thingamy.
I'll tell you what it is. I don't want to get caught in a situation where the viewer will find out more about my painting than I already know. You understand what I mean?
Yeah, sometimes yeah.
So what do I do?
What do you do?
I paint a painting and I know that it's getting near completion.
Yeah.
That it can be 3 more layers, 7 or 1 more layer, but I know I'm near. So now I'm paying attention to the fact I need to be able to figure out this painting just as well as anybody most probably will. Not maybe everybody, but one of them will. And if someone's going to address me with something, I want to know what he's talking about because it's my opinion. So I look at all the angles, and once I realize that I got to a point that I'm pretty much in control of what is the message and what's going on structurally and so much more, then I release it. Then I can say, it doesn't matter, it's done now. If I say in 2 hours, that means it's this second, it's done. So usually when I say it's done, I don't argue and I don't tend to bring it back to the easel or whatever. It's done, it's done. Then now it's in the stage of preparation to be presented. I can seal it, I can maybe edges, maybe this. This is what I'm busy with. But to remind you also that I do many, many paintings at the same time.
Yeah.
And in different styles and all that. And first I thought it was not a good idea. And then I learned that it's the opposite, that this is good. It keeps me on the alert, it keeps me busy all the time in the studio. That means I don't need to handle this one and wait for it to dry. I can go to this. Also, I'm influenced because of this to that, even though they're 2 different styles. So you are actually also showing your presence in all the space of the studio, because usually artists, they come, they paint, the easel, usually they stay within that square where they are. They don't move too much. When I go to my studio, I ended up being in so many spots. I have like 3, 4 easels. I have other things on the floor. So I have to travel in the studio while I'm attending whatever it is that... So it's a fantastic feeling. I know artists, when I go to their studios, this reality non-existing. Even if they're not traditional, they're conservative. You know what I mean? It's just this and that and all that. And I've been there. I like it. I do it sometimes. But I'm more like, this seriousness got to have some playful aspects. You know, it's got to. You cannot survive the level of seriousness if you're a devoted artist. The level of seriousness that you project, you won't survive it. It will be much stronger than you. So you have to understand, even though it's coming from you, it's not a guarantee that you can control it. It can take over. And then that's why I say an avalanche of goodness still by nature is deadly. It's an avalanche. It will bury you alive.
Yeah.
Do you follow my psyche here?
I
So,
do.
so you have to understand that process. So I always thought it's coming from me. I'm mastering it. I'm kind of in charge, kind of thing, if I can use this word. But then I realized, no, you experience something. You say, wait, what just happened there? I wasn't I couldn't decide. It was something took over. And then you realize this can get out of hand pretty quickly. So you reintroducing yourself to the process all over again, rehumbling yourself, still aware of your capabilities. So what else can one need in that journey? So, and the results keep on coming in, they're rolling in. So there's always something that you have a point of reference that you already accomplished, and something that just in 2 seconds from now will be already something to show for. And as a result, like, let's just say I will talk to you for hours and hours, and you say, okay, so what are you talking about? Show me something. So then I turn around, I start showing you things, and they say, okay, and then I keep on showing, and then you say, okay, it's enough. It's because suddenly it hits you that things match, you know. You just say that, I saw this. So that's why when people, let's say, address me and I see them, they come to my art exhibitions, I know that it stays in their recollection, and that recollection is more recollection of strength. Not necessarily, oh, a beautiful painting, or I heard a beautiful poem. More something like this guy projected strength in his display, in his curation, in his intentions. And you can't really talk specifically about this or that, but that stays with you. So when you see the person again, you suddenly, that encounter is taking place based on that sensation of strength that you recollect from the last engagement. Now, if you know me for a while, you realize there were like dozens of them. So now it widens, and now you realize, so this is the kind of relationship you want for your own sake as an artist. Not that people will say you're great or anything, just that you will feel their reservation about you. They wouldn't be able to hide how they feel about you without even saying a word, but you feel that. So that's fuel, that's precious fuel, you know. And because we want to continue to go to the studio, you know, it's not that easy to just go to the studio, oh, let me go to pen. It's not a lovey-dovey reality. It's demanding, it's overwhelming, it's demanding, you know. It's not easy, obstacles, this, that. So it's not like a given. So every time, that's why I think Picasso said that, whatever, you know, you come to your studio, once you open the handle, you might as well close it and say, I've been there, that's it. This is most of the work, to actually, and you don't grasp the extent of it unless you become one. And when you become, when I say become one, I mean one that wants to paint and most probably paints every day. An hour, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. That's you know what I mean? Because when you accept that, it's almost like becoming religious, you know? Like a Jewish, you cannot do the Sabbath, the this, don't kill, don't that, eat kosher, whatever. Suddenly restrictions. So then it's the process of turning it into a given, you know, into a given is a process in itself also. And then when you think that you're all broken in and perfect, you still need that maintenance. Is you always need for maintenance. And you can't hire someone to come and do the maintenance for you. That's the problem.
Yeah, I still got to change those tires sometimes. So and those dishes, you know, the pile up. But so when you are writing your poetry, and then when you're speaking, and then when you're painting, kind of what you're saying is it's all the same art flow, just one is going this way. You mentioned you do a couple of paintings at the same time. And this is something for a fact checker, but I think when Picasso was doing Guernica, he was also doing the Cubism. It wasn't that he was only doing Cubism, and now he's doing this. I think he was like what you were saying, doing a bunch of paintings at the same time.
No doubt.
But when you're doing a bunch of paintings at the same time, and then you're coming here and you're speaking, I hear you, when I'm hearing you speaking, I'm not looking at a painting, I'm listening to a painting. I'm
Yes.
listening to this guy, what he's putting out there in this continuum, and then the poetry, and then your book. Do you have a copy of your book? That's very cool. You got this book going on.
Yeah.
That's of all these like wisdoms from Haim,
Yeah,
observations from Haim.
There's no
Mizrahi.
simple way to say simple things.
Yeah. So no, but so hopefully you'll come out again. We'll bring your book because I loved you guys reading some of your book in that show.
And you recited a poem you didn't even know about the leaf that falls into the water stream and all this, and then suddenly they evokes the fish and the this and that. Right there was a poem, and then I kind of looked at you and I said, "My God, he's a poet," and it just takes a moment. So that moment of appreciation will never leave me about you. You know what I mean? It was maybe 7 seconds, but I saw something that just appeals to me and becomes a fix, like an imprint within my recollection, observation. It should be this way. It should that you could meet people or hear them say something and say, wow. Just like when I took saxophone lessons a million years ago, my teacher gave up on me. He said, "You don't have what it takes, I'm sorry." And then one day, suddenly I made that lower do and higher do, and then he jumped and he says, "There's still hope." He heard that one note. He said,
Yeah.
"There's still," and he jumped. I said, "Oh my God."
As long as you get that one note, there's always
because
hope.
he gave me the
That's
bad
funny.
news that that's it. Go home. Don't come back again. Sunday ahead. He said, "No way." And then I stayed for another 6 months or whatever. But that's what.
Well,
it
thank God
takes.
for that teacher keeping you going with that one note.
And so that's what I say in terms of when I hear you sometimes on TV and then I know the energy. It's one and the same. Good for you that you can maintain that one of the same re- reality of who you are. It's wonderful. And what's good about what you do, I think, is that you don't try hard to do it. You don't like pause and shift and that. It's really mostly who you are.
Yeah.
Congratulations for that. That's a big deal.
Thanks. I was telling Haim before we went on an experience I had because I do do news reports from different towns in Bayside, Queens, and I started this thing, Bayside TV. I've got it out here in the Hamptons now. But when I was just starting to interview people, it was just me. So I had the camera, microphones, I'm here, and I just started talking to somebody and telling people who this person is. And I just kept doing them. I just didn't even think about it. And like again, this is from the Tao. The superior man doesn't think he's superior, or the good man doesn't think he's good. He just is good. The guy who thinks he's good, just maybe he isn't as good. But so here I am. I'm interviewing people and talking to them, not even thinking about it. And then one day, I'm looking at the camera. There was a monitor, and I'm doing the thing that I've just done casually. There's no big thing. And I looked, and I saw myself in the monitor, and my whole body, it's like every muscle tensed up. I went, "Oh, so." Hi, I'm Greg Sullivan. We're here. And the whole other thing, you could see the moment I became self-conscious in another way that I hadn't seen myself,
Yeah.
or what other people might see me as. And it took me weeks to get. It took me weeks to get off
So
of that.
what came out of it? What is the what? How do you?
Well,
how did you benefit from this realization?
I realized what came naturally was just be yourself and be natural, have self-confidence, and just do what you're doing. Don't think about what other people are thinking about. Don't think about the other way people are looking at you. Who cares? They're gonna just be who you are and be who you are. It was only that moment, and it's so funny because on the video I saved it, where that moment of recognition that I'm now this like on-air personality, that everything changed. And I was like, no, that's what they're seeing in that monitor. You just keep talking to the guy how you're talking to. So it took me a little while, but I was stronger after that. Because I realized, wow, you had to actually work through that to get back to your natural self. That's kind of what your message is a little bit. To stay true to your natural self. Don't let yourself get taken away from it. And that's why you're the great artist that you are.
Yeah, well, thank you. I appreciate that. But then you got to be careful not to be too cliche, even though we need cliches in our lives, and too trivial, even though we need that these sensations, because you want to keep the skeleton and the muscles that you have gathered on to wrap around that skeleton to be present. You cannot afford a day of wobbliness and a day of firmness. It's got to be progressing all the time. And we are responsible for it. We can make it happen. We can slow it down. We can expedite it. And that's the beauty of it. So when you spoke of drums and poetry and paintings, this cross implementation was already a given in my life long before I did painting. I was always writing poems and playing drums. But I never even had the relationship with a potential evolutionary process to become an artist. It wasn't. It just
You were
happened.
born that way. It's in your DNA.
It just happened,
yourself.
yes. It happened. Thank God it happened. I mean, you don't know how happy I am that it's a source that takes me and elevates me and provides me with the right psyche in moments of difficulty that has nothing to do with the creative process. It's like a medicine for all and all that. But going back to this cross implementation, you have to decide what governs everything. You have to favor one of them. Otherwise, you cannot progress by cross implementation. You can progress by dealing with each one separately, which is not what you want. I decided it's the drums, it's rhythm. There's rhythm everywhere. Rhythm is the melody, the harmony. It's everything. It's everything. It's everything. So that led me to believe that I can resolve all the issues that I have with painting and writing poetry by addressing the rhythm on the drum set. How easy can it be? Right there, I can stop and not continue, and it should be telling you everything already. So what happens is that I know my source that I'm going to get all the enlightenments from. It doesn't mean that it's not going to get from the others, but drums, rhythm govern. That's why I call most of my pieces music sheets. And because it's real music sheets. And you can dictate the rhythm on the surface with your action. You can do that. But you can only succeed if you're stubborn enough to keep a straight face through the process. The only way.
Keeping a straight face. You know,
Through the process.
I have a lot of problems with that sometimes myself. Looking at some people, I got to keep a straight face looking at this person. Are you kidding me? But
You know, metaphorically speaking, where I'm coming from.
yeah. So, and what that made me feel, you know how if you're tuning, you're musicians, talking about music, so you're playing a musical instrument, but you're tuning it, you're tuning your guitar, and it's going dun, 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 dun. But then as soon as it actually hits that harmonic note where it's in tune, this other vibration comes out. Right, so you're tuning it, and they're getting closer, and they're getting closer. But then, when you really get in that pocket, and you got it musically, but if you're in tuning it, once those two things harmonize, there's this extra vibration. And the way you're what you were just kind of describing is once you're getting into it and getting farther into it, and it just becomes a pure thing for you. You are in that harmony, and you get that power, that other thing that happens inside of us. So suddenly, it like manifests itself through us with some additional energy and joy. I find that it just seems to me that when people are really in that great space, there's a joy that they feel. Even if they're expressing something that's with anger or frustration or confusion, but if they're in that space that is touching those, there's still a joy knowing you're in that space, that spiritual empowerment. You know, I don't know. You've talked about God. I've always said to God, I just believe in this divine imagination, not feminine, not masculine, but this divine energy that ambulates and creates us all, and we're part of God. But but your view of God is still kind of separate a little. God is like outside of you, but then at the same time, you're talking about your art as
It's
art
more
God
like
flowing
a
through you.
partnership. Yeah, it's more like because when you allow. You have to think that God created us really as the part of who He is, it is, she is, and so by doing so, the ultimate source is doomed by nature because it cannot annihilate us, because it would mean annihilating a part of who this eternity is, infinity is. It cannot hurt itself. It's an impossibility. So lucky for us that he's made that decision.
How is it an impossibility?
Because in Hebrew, we say he created us B'Tselem. Tselem is the image. So when he says the image, he said the image of the features. So our features are godly. I don't know to what extent, but it is, because that's how it was created. So this commitment prevents from the ultimate source to work against itself. Because if it will annihilate us or eliminate us, it's eliminating a fraction of that infinity. So therefore it puts an end to it. It will dissolve itself if it will dissolve us. There's no way around it, because when you touch eternity, it's not just the little touch of eternity, it's eternity as a whole. There's no separation that defines the amount of that you got from it. You got everything. And that's what Kabbalah says. You go to the mountain, you take one stone, you took the whole mountain with you. There's just no discussion about it. When you want to attach it back to it, you didn't attach, because it never lacked that which you grabbed away from it, because they're existing as two mountains, whole in their nature and all this. So when it comes to music, and you say, what is for example, going back to basics, takes a place a lot when it comes to drums. At least I know when I took lessons in this and educated myself. Going back to basics, what is it that the teacher is trying to tell you? You can see there's the 1, and there's the 2, and there's the 4, and there's the 3, there's the paradiddle, triola, there's the double stroke roll, single stroke roll. That's it. That's it. So what are they trying to tell you? When you're at the height of your sophistication and you're having really a hard time, and you know if you're going to continue one more second like this, you're going to fail. Go back to basics. Why? Because it's a safe haven. Because you cannot go wrong. You cannot go wrong. You cannot suddenly say, "Where am I? This is 1, 3, D." This is how it is. So when you have that, going back to, you have time to think where you were. Now you can resolve it from the zone of the basics. Not by the source of what the basics gives you, but just by being there, being placed there physically. So you know already that you can double task, so you can get involved with the basics and think about a resolution for where you came from and evidently you're going to go back to. This is just temporary. So you have like your saving accounts, like a box, like let's say you play or you paint and suddenly you can't afford to stop and it's crisis. You open the box and you take some of the credits that you have. And what does that give you? 5 minutes of resolution. You can continue as if the obstacle wasn't there before. But these 5 minutes are not going just 5 minutes without thought. It's by deep thought. Okay, I don't want to use my savings accounts too often. So these 5 minutes are giving you a solution on how to, once these 5 minutes are up, you continue as usual where you were before. Now, this is crucial if you want to have 60 years worth of creation, which is nothing. Either you born with that ultimate capability, or you
Nothing to him, but
or you
that
create it
formidable,
yourself. You can create that ultimate capability. It's hard work, but you can. But to sit around and think that you're somewhat talented and you got 60, 70 years to, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with wanting to be famous, powerful, and earn a living and make people happy and all that. It's not too much to ask for. But
So just because sometimes you're like, there's so much when you can get in because there's so much to follow. So the strength of your structure is fortified by going back to your roots, going back to basics. So the foundation, if you're always going back to the foundation, the strength of the structure is going to continue to be fortified and strong. I love that.
But it's a precise foundation. It's not a random foundation.
Yeah. I love that. That makes sense.
You're going back to something that never changes. Yeah. That's why it caters to your needs, and that's why it makes life easy for you.
And probably gives birth to style. If someone has a style because they kept going back to their own basics.
That's a good point.
I think Carl Sandburg. He said a society or a relationship, but he said, and probably even to art too. He said the reason that a society perishes is for one reason only: it forgot where it came from. He's so right. If we forget where we came from, we perish. But going back to those basics, this is what, like even in America, this is what founded us. This is where we started. We'll always stay strong if we go back to those basics. It really applies to politics. It applies to art. It applies to music. It applies to cooking. I can think of all the cooking things I've done and where I just stayed with the basics instead of start getting crazy. And people are like, what is it that you made? But anyway, so no, that's a great thing. It applies everywhere.
But you know, you remind me of something. I can tell you of an instance that a great collector knows everything about art. And he indulged me. He came to one of my shows, and he said, come to me and look how much you can learn from someone. And he said, do you know how I can tell you're a great artist? And so I'd love to know. He says, you see this? I look at this and I ask myself, can I do this? And when I know I cannot do this, I know it's as great as I tell you that it is. Now, coming from him, you would think, okay, you know, people say nice things. It's nice. I'll take it any day. I indulge. I'll try to benefit from it, all this. But I take this thing and I said, in my future creations, this statement is accompanying me. Sometimes I can't help it because it's a new realization. I never looked at it this way. So when I was doing the work, I kept on saying to myself, I think he's right. There is much more to what I'm doing than I'm even aware of. So now I became conscious of it. So consciousness spells what? Strength.
Yeah.
You want to be strong. I can continue for hours and talk to you, and strength will come a lot. Powerful, strengthful, like Kenwood Denard, the famous drummer of bush rock, and played with the Gil Evans Orchestra in the Sweet Basil in the 80s and 90s, was my teacher for 6 years. He said, one thing I want to teach you at first, you cannot produce noise playing the drums. It's an impossibility. You grew up, maybe people say, oh, stop it, he's too loud, make him stop, this, that, no. No, there's power. So he would sit 6 feet, 8 feet away from you with the drum set, and you sit, and he hits the snare drum, and you feel your second chakra boiling. This is not a joke. And so now, he did that once or twice. Suddenly, one of my, exactly as I described to you with people how they feel about me and why, in 1 second, he set my mode into trying to find the proper appreciation for this unusual experience that I just experienced. So I'm already coming with that level of, eventually I benefit much more than I would have if otherwise what took happen would have happened. He produced to you the meaning of power. You want to talk about power? Power can be very noisy, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about the power. So the sensation of power, also with the painting. The paintings will introduce to you a set of difficulties and obstacles and question marks, completely different by nature than a poem will. Even though a poem can be, when I taught the project most here with the first graders and second graders, I was very busy with trying to find the shortest word possible. And I remember that we arrived to this is the shortest, you know what I mean? Like unbelievable, playing the drums, the softest. And I didn't stop until we realized that nobody is hitting the cymbal anymore. You follow what I'm saying? So now, and why did it all happen? Because I trusted that it will. So I had to do it as many times as I had to do it until we heard nothing. And then when you stop hearing what you're supposed to, when otherwise you touch the drums, you start hearing that which doesn't exist, meaning different things, you know what I mean? So you can discuss endless. And what are they? 7, 8 years old. 7, 8 years old.
7, 8 years old.
Yes. and a formidable partner, a company.
So you had to have gone to Central Park in the summer and gone to a drum circle, and you hear those, and when you're talking about this power, and you hang out with the drum circle for a while, and after a while, well, I like Rio. I went to Rio for Carnival, and after a week of samba, you're in some samba place, you know, and don't want to get on the plane to go back home at least until you recover. But so the drumming and the power behind that. And that's in you all the time, even when you're painting, even when you're...
Yes. For example, I came up with the double stroke paradiddle, which is not existing in the basics, because I always felt like the paradiddle is unique because you can always go paradiddle, 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 paradiddle. So you do that, this is basic. So, and then I pushed the double stroke, which is right, left, ta, 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 ta. So I took the double stroke roll onto the paradiddle, so it would be ta 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 ta. So it's ta 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 ta. So what happens is, it's an invention that only benefits you. It's not like the world of rhythm will say, wow, look at...
You had a little Tito Puentes in there, by the way. That little extra trill.
But when you're aware of that, I know that. Like when I watch the great drummers that come from the South, from the churches, they rule the world of excellence, excellence of rhythm and coordination and whatnot. They're awesome. They're all about maintaining the fine aspect of it while introducing consistent power that is just unreal. It's unbelievable. So when I'm doing that, it's so much a part of who I am, because since day one, I know what rhythm is. So now I'm looking at the painting, and when I have that knowledge that tells me you are stronger than you think you are, you're more capable than you think you are. So it reflects on the painting. I dare doing more things that otherwise I wouldn't, maybe I pull more paint, maybe I change colors. It's all about composition and color and placement, I mean. So it's almost like a process that you responsible for that almost guarantees you success. It's like you can hardly find yourself failing. It just doesn't exist. Not, and again, for the right reasons, not because you're narcissistic or thinking that you're holier than thou. So it's more like it's just a give and take, a constant give and take, like I said, with being who you are. If you introduce here who you are, period, this is the give and take, the give and take. And the give and take does that, motion. And who says that motion is also motion forward? But it can be anyway. It doesn't matter if it's back. You think that the motion is knows the difference between whether you're going forward or backward or up and down.
Yeah.
It's motion. It's like chi.
Yeah.
The chi. What is the magic about chi? It's when you call the chi, it will never deny you. It will never say, "Wait a second, but why do you need me?" There's no questions. That's why Tai Chi tells you when you open the form, you call the chi. And they're telling you not to bother thinking about the chi because the chi will come. That's the greatest of awareness when it comes to Tai Chi. Because you know you can always open and your wish will be granted because you cannot start the form unless the chi comes. So come to chi, here push it to the second chakra. Now you start the form. Because you know that it is unconditional, the form is secured. It can always happen.
It seems like you're in that state now as a constant, in that state of chi and that energy. You don't impress me ever as a guy who goes out and comes back in. I'm used to actors who stand with them off stage and then suddenly they go into character and there's somebody else. You've got this consistent thing, like a vibe all the time, right? You don't go in and out of your chi.
Well, I go in and out in a different way than you think. It's not evident that I do, but I do when I'm in the
Me, that's
realm.
for sure.
So
I always see you as like.
Yeah. No,
yes,
I hear you. I know. Probably you're right. Again, I can't tell you so much about myself because I cannot really spend time observing myself. I always thought I could do that, but that's a waste of time. We cannot do that. We need a good friend, a brother, or someone to tell you all the good things about you. It's okay.
Or the bad things.
Or the bad thing, whatever. But at least you know that if it's
Give it
good.
to me between the eyes, I'll take it. Yeah, it's better to see ourselves through other people's eyes often.
But art prevails. There is no way you can raise kids and I have my own expecting something negative to happen or to come out of it. It's just a guarantee. Even in Auschwitz, there were villains that killed tens of thousands of people with their pistol, like right there. But still, when they realize that there's a pianist there, and used to play the piano before the war, and they know this genius pianist, they saves his life. They bring him to the office in that inferno of death. And it was said that this villain was on his knees kissing the feet of this pianist that weighed maybe 75 pounds.
Even killers have values, even monsters have some value, some respect for
art humbles
art.
Evil. Evil bows in front of art, especially if it dictates that it's not just a game. This is not just a presentation only to scare evil away and then go back to normal of mediocrity.
Yeah.
It just doesn't happen. So it's got to be the fact that you believe in that. So what happens, I say, my marching into my studio is no different than any other great artist of the past. What we did inside the studio, that's a different story. But entering and getting, they had to go and address and the easel, they had to have the right brushes. They have to wonder sometimes where's the rest of the paint or whatever. It's just nothing. If I would go to any other studio, I wouldn't think like something I would know. It would be familiar. So this realization, you'll be surprised how effective it is in motivating me. Just go there. So many before you that changed the perception and the level of importance. Why is it important to have art, and especially if you can become one yourself? That helped me. That helped to create a resolution. I was resolved. I wasn't working on being resolved, but I became resolved. So it's just like the ongoingness of all this thing that we're discussing is maintaining our achievements. So we wake up the next morning, go to the studio. I don't feel like I marched backwards. I didn't feel, oh, wait a second, You know, I'm aware that from here I'm proceeding where I left off when I was here last.
So that speaks to my point, the unequivocality of your artistic aplomb. What you said, you don't need to go and prepare everything and make sure this is right and that's right and I got the right utensils or I got the right paintings or everything. You go in and you're just doing it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I'd like to have that and I write. So I remember when I was starting writing, I had to have the right paper, the yellow pad, had the right pen. Couldn't write it, didn't have the right pen. It's like, what the fuck?
I think you're running out of time.
Oh, so, well, I'm loving this,
Yes.
but I could look. This guy, broadening your horizon of understanding takes one thing and one thing only. Listen to this man. Just listen to Haim, and you will broaden your horizon of understanding. And I could be talking to him all day, obviously, because it's fun. But so these are great. I love it. I love it, man. I'm glad you're
Thank
here.
you so much. Thank you for it. You know, maybe in the future we'll do it again. So
And also, by the way, you still look the same.
Okay.
I got gray hairs. I'm older.
I don't have hair left at all.
I want to do a facelift, something. But you look the same. Amazing.
God bless.
Or maybe you just looked older.
All the